Have you ever found yourself in a situation with a patient when they are obviously very visibly upset, distressed, and are displaying a range of negative emotions that are causing you to experience, as a healthcare provider, a heightened sense of not only stress, frustration, but also helplessness, because you're wanting to really get them to a better place and you just don't know how to do that and you feel completely stuck. Now, in your training and in my content and all over the interwebs, there is plenty of material and content on how we can be more empathetic and how to resolve conflict management. However, what if I told you that being empathetic and developing empathy is the single greatest superpower in really connecting and with your patient and being a collaborator and a teammate with them? So in this video, I'm going to look into how being empathetic and developing empathy can really help us not only resolve conflicts, but also sustain trust-based, long-term, deep connections with our patients. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Good to have everybody back on. The lighting is a little bit weird today. I've sort of moved around 3 different rooms in the house trying to get this filmed. Hopefully this is looking a little bit better for you. So my name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. I help healthcare providers from non-English speaking backgrounds or English as a second language backgrounds improve their English language fluency and, more importantly, their communication skills in order for them to build better relationships with their patients, get more referrals from their friends and family, and overall be able to deliver a positive patient experience consistently while really reaping the rewards of their roles in healthcare. So here in this video, I'm going to cover how connecting to really sometimes polarizing, but 2 aspects that I have spoken a lot about on this channel and on my content on LinkedIn about empathy and conflict management. So you can actually go back and watch my past videos, and because I'll leave as many of them as I can in the end screen. There's a playlist on conflict management, and there's plenty of content on my LinkedIn about this topic as well. However, I thought what I would cover in today's video is how you can harness the power of empathy in not only resolving and de-escalating conflicting situations effectively, but also to be able to build a better relationship with your patients. So in other words, how in many ways empathy is a superpower that can turn conflict into connection and collaboration with your patients. So there are 4 ways that in which I have explored this. There are many, many others, and there will definitely be a part 2 of this video at some stage. So stay tuned for that. So let's get straight into it. Being empathetic really enables you to recognize your patient's underlying feelings. Now, if you are someone who is quite an empath and you are much better at empathy than everyone else, you are able to understand beyond the surface level of what a patient is feeling. So say, for example, you are, say, working in the emergency department, you are an ED specialist, and you have a patient and his family, for example, and they have come in and they are all anxious, they're panicky. Obviously, there's a reason why the patient has gone into emergency, and they're looking for answers. The symptoms of the patient have been really, really bad. So if you were empathetic, instead of you reacting to that very emotions that they're displaying straight away, what you will be able to do is first take a step back and understand where they're coming from that are driving this patient's behavior to do that way. Now, I admit, no one comes into an emergency department looking all happy, rosy, and joyful like Julie Andrews in Sound of the Music. That's not how it works. But you are able to actually differentiate between somebody who might just be rude and entitled, for example, and someone who's genuinely distressed. And you're also able to validate that patient's experience by doing that. So by doing so, when patients feel understood, they're more likely to open up to you and really share things with you and also be calm themselves. So you have to actually, you de-escalate a conflicting situation by displaying calmness yourself. And by doing so, you reduce tension and you build a lot of trust with your patients. And that's the other big advantage of how being empathetic or developing a better sense of empathy can really help you help this become a superpower for you. The third big one is that it helps you clarify misunderstandings. So, for example, one of the main reasons or sources of conflict is actually having more often than not factual misunderstandings. So, say for example, when I was working in healthcare, I had this situation very, very often. So a lot of patients would ring and they want to book an image of their breast area to see if they have breast cancer, or it was for that purpose. And, where I worked, they had a very strict criteria about in what situation will that scan be covered by insurance, and in what situation will that not be covered by insurance. And that is something that, when the patients came to me and I had to let them know that this is what you'll be charged for it led to a lot of conflicts, because what their doctors and the government usually tells them is completely different to how things worked in this particular organization. This obviously was not the patient's fault. They merely just went with what their healthcare provider and the messages from the government that was said. And you also have to bear in mind a lot of the patients that I was working with were elderly patients as well. So their ability to really remember things and also them not being the best with technology, were all these things that were really against them. Now, I have to admit, in the very beginning, I used to find it very, very frustrating that I have to repeat myself so many times and tell these people that you do not meet the criteria to have the scan covered by insurance. This is dictated by this one particular entity or this organization that manages the billing for the breast images in our country. So this is the criteria that we have set. And if we and it's not something that we have decided, and if we don't honor that will be a breach of compliance from the end where we're operating from. So even though I was quite frustrated when I used to speak to them, it used to come across as, yes, being factual, being professional, but also helping them clarify that misunderstanding that they had about the pricing. And this didn't happen for me overnight. This is something that I had to really reflect on, take accountability of where I'm going wrong in how I'm approaching these situations that can be quite conflicting and challenging. But then eventually, once I really grasped the deeper nuances of patient care, I slowly but surely started to become much more confident with my skills and navigated these kind of challenging conversations in a much better manner. So, and when I did so, I had to not only be factual, but also give reasons behind, again, very factual reasons behind why this is how the scan is going to proceed, and this is what they're going to be charged, and this is the reason why. And when they did demonstrate to me that they were feeling frustrated, I would just say to them, I'm sorry you feel that way, and I can empathize with you, and I can understand where you're coming from. Now, it's very easy to say this, but it's also equally important that you mean it when you say these things. So, and again, that takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of self-reflection and awareness to do that. I admit I am not by nature an empathetic person. So for me, it takes a long time, even though I, like an imposter, preach about empathy on this channel all the time. It has never come to me naturally. But with time, I have really sort of made myself and got myself to a better place in demonstrating and really seeing where the patient is coming from and put my agenda aside. And I think most importantly, even in a situation like that, so say for example when you are a veterinarian, and nowadays what can happen is, now because of all this information that you have on TikTok and you have all this information on Instagram about, or social media in general, about pet care, they will go and take that as the holy grail. So when they take their pets for a consultation and say, they say to them that, say their pet is arthritic or has started to experience arthritis, and they say to them that they are not going to, even though the veterinarian might recommend some sort of like medication, they might say that they want to stick with more alternative or natural therapies. So and in that case, it might sort of become a clash of the titans, sort of put it that way, where really conventional knowledge is being conflicted with modern facts and theories. So in that case, if you are a veterinarian and you are finding yourself in that situation going, okay, so this patient or client wants to proceed with the treatment of their pet in a different direction. So, and you might well be aware of that. So what you have to do is really put out to them the pros and cons and the side effects of both the treatment plans. And in the very end, you ask them, how do you feel about this? Do you think this is the best way to get your dog, cat, or whichever animal that you have to a much healthier place so that they can be treated and healed and cared for better? And then you can sort of help them sort of decide what direction that they want to proceed with. So instead of really throwing your own agenda and your own, I suppose, not just judgment, but like your own, way of looking at things, you have to really put your patients in the front of everything and see what is going to help them achieve the best outcome. And you really have to be the team player in actually doing that. Which brings me really well to the next point. Being empathetic really helps de-escalate and resolve conflict effectively. We've sort of covered that, but also fosters a sense of collaboration and cooperation. Because at the end of the day, we want our patients to feel like we have their support, we have their back, and almost like we are teammates, where we have that we are not only holding each other accountable, but we're also looking out for each other and having each other's best interests at heart. And the other important thing is that when patients feel much more heard, understood, and involved and participated in making decisions about their care and treatment, it develops a sense of autonomy in them, and it also obviously builds trust and a sense of partnership with your patients. Additionally, when you acknowledge how a patient is feeling, like I mentioned previously, when you say, I understand where you're coming from, especially when you have been in a similar situation before as a patient, definitely incorporate that when you're having that conversation, but also be very honest and authentic. Don't just say, "Oh, I know where you're coming from," just to say it. So you say to them that I've been there. I understand where you're coming from, and I can imagine how you're feeling this way. So when you acknowledge that a patient's feeling and validate it, that's a very good, effective way for them to not only for the diffusion and the de-escalation of the situation to take place in a conflict, but the patient will also feel that yes, this person is knows, they get it, they know where I'm coming from, and they know how I trust them to be able to get me to a better place. And finally, you are much better equipped to handle difficult conversations during conflicting situations when you have a sense of empathy, a strong sense of empathy as a healthcare provider. So in the past, like in a lot of my past videos, I've talked about not only how to best deliver bad news to your patient, supporting them through making tough decisions. So say, for example, in one of my previous posts on LinkedIn from last week, where I talked about how I became my parents' power of attorney. So if I ever get to that situation, where I have to decide what to do with my parents' treatment when they get to that age when they can't decide for themselves, I would want a healthcare provider who will support me in making those decisions and who can obviously understand where they're coming from, and also lay out all the cards for me, no matter how difficult the news it might be and how tough it might be. I need to know as a power of attorney that they are on our side and they are going to advocate for what's best for us. And at the same time, when you are able to demonstrate empathy, you can be also very clear about your boundaries and not making sure that your patients are aware of them and that they're not being encroached upon, because at the end of the day, you don't want anyone walking all over you and just not respecting you as an individual. And you will be much more committed to developing more of a win-win outcome for your patients. So that way, both parties or all the parties involved are in a better place as much. These are some of the ways in which being empathetic and demonstrating a strong sense of empathy towards your patients can be a great, almost not a kryptonite. I would say that it can be a really, really potent combination of having those right soft skills and those powerful communication skills in resolving conflict and building collaborative connections and relationships with your patients. To check out more of this type of content on communication skills as a healthcare provider, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell on the screen, and also like this video if you have genuinely liked it. And as always, thank you very much for your time, attention, patience, and support, and I will see you next week, same time. Cheers.